Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the #1 web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful, featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. I'm your host, Michael Knouse, and welcome to the next installment of Side Hustle Month, where I'm interviewing experts about everything you need to know to start a meaningful business on the side. Today, I have side hustle expert Nick Loper on the show. Nick is the chief side hustler at sidehustlenation.com, and he used to work for a giant corporation where he built his business during the nights and weekends. Today, he's a full-time entrepreneur, and he's going to shed some light on what it takes to build and succeed at a side hustle. So buckle up and get ready to learn from a side hustle master. It's all coming to you right now on episode 24 of the Startup Sessions. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Startup Sessions. I'm very excited about this week. I've got a special guest. I've got Nick Loper here with me. And Nick is a perfect fit for April because April is Side Hustle Month. And it's essentially experts and episodes about everything you need to know about starting a meaningful business on the side. And Nick is a true side hustler. He's got a popular blog. The name of his blog is Side Hustle Nation, and he's got an amazing podcast that you may want to check out that's called The Side Hustle Show. I've listened to it a few times, and it's always incredible content. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you for having me. Side hustle, baby.
Side hustle. It's all about the side hustle. So here's the deal. Nick used to work full-time for a big corporation. And he built his business on nights and weekends, which is the formula that many of us who want to create something meaningful on the side, that's the wise and smart approach to go. Because most of us, I don't think, can just quit our jobs and start our businesses. So now Nick is doing this full time. He's helping entrepreneurs launch their businesses or take their side hustles to the next level. And today I'll be talking with Nick about how to start a successful side hustle, as well as lessons learned along the way and anywhere else the conversation takes us. So maybe to start things off, Nick, what is a side hustler?
Well, a side hustler is somebody who's decided to use their free time more productively. My friend puts it this way: he doesn't believe in paycheck monogamy, right? Some people are running marathons on the weekend. You might be running a business, and he puts it that way. And I like this because it's like a lower risk brand of entrepreneurship. It's like I'm not. You're not likely to go out and get venture funding and have a giant IPO and be ringing the bell on the NASDAQ or something like that. Mm-hmm. But this is how can we create a lifestyle business? How can I sustain how can I cover my expenses? How can I build more freedom and happiness into my life by not relying on my employer for a paycheck the whole time?
Got it. I love the concept. It's actually like I alluded to, it's the path that many of us take, and it's the path I took. I didn't even call it a side hustle because I didn't know how to label it, I guess, when I first started out, starting something on the side when I was in my corporate job. So great. There's the definition, and a great one, of what a side hustler is. Now, I'd like for people to have a little bit of perspective on you. So if you would, share a little bit about what your life was like prior to Side Hustle Nation and the work that you're doing now.
Sure. So my first business was in the affiliate marketing arena. I started it in kind of the very tail end of college, doing pay-per-click advertising direct to different store. Like I would find a product I thought would sell and send people directly to that store with my affiliate link. Mm-hmm. And that was going okay. That was going well, but it didn't really scale. Yeah. And so by that time, I'd graduated, moved across the country, and found myself with a lot more free time, especially weeknights, like not knowing anybody really outside of work, and outside of my apartment, it's like, okay, well, what can I do? I don't want to be the person that just sits there and watches TV all the time. So what can I do to, like, I've got this thing going on the side. Like, is there a way to expand it? Is there a way to grow it?
Yeah.
And so we kind of, my theory was the way for this to scale was instead of researching like individual products and pricing and stores, like what if we could aggregate, all this stuff into one database, into one resource, and then just send people to those pages, and they would like update automatically with different prices and stuff. And so that was like the birth of the shoesniper.com, and previously called shoesrus.net, which is, I don't know what it was like the first domain that popped into my head. You can look in like the Wayback Machine to see how ugly the design was and everything.
Yeah.
But that was the concept to get it off the ground. Had to invest in some web development to make that happen. If I was trying to do it myself, it might still be in the development phases. And from there, it was kind of a slow ramp up, like nights and weekends, trying to build out the inventory and the advertising and kind of getting all the messaging right from that perspective. But it was from like concept to I'm comfortable quitting my job was 3 years.
3 years, okay. Got it. Would you say that was 3 years of pretty consistent effort along the way, week to week?
It was. I mean, it's a constant battle because like in contrast to my day job, it was fun to work on. Not that my day job wasn't fun, but like you could see the direct input, direct result on like your efforts to the results. And so to me, that was what was really rewarding to come home and you want to spend time on it because you can see that impact and watch it grow.
Okay. All right. Okay. And I think that's big for people too. You made a comment that some people, when they're not working, they run marathons, and some people build businesses. And I think that's an important element to understand. Like if you're going to start a side hustle, make it be about something that you care about. And it doesn't have to, that doesn't, I don't think, mean that, you've got to like love it and be totally passionate about like teddy bears. So that's going to be your thing. It can be underlying, like you could really be a person that loves to set like these stretch goals for your business and see that tangible part of building a business move forward week to week. What motivated you most to start a side hustle in the first place?
Well, for me, and I should add, the concept was shoes, a topic I'm not particularly. I'm sitting here in my bare feet right now. Not a topic I'm particularly passionate about, but it was more excited for the process, like to be building something, to be working on something that's productive, that's helping people, that is earning money on the side and stuff.
Yep.
The motivation for me was I did not see myself. I got a corporate job out of college because that was like, that's the script you're supposed to follow. And I wasn't, I didn't have anything, I didn't have a fallback. I didn't have anything else I was going to do instead. So that seemed like the right path to go. I think it was. But I never saw myself as like the person who wanted to climb the corporate ladder and, climb the ranks and be a manager someday. Like that just didn't, for whatever reason, that didn't appeal to me. And so I was like, I needed to build some sort of escape route. I think I would have been a pretty depressed 23-year-old, 22-year-old without that going on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it seems to me that there's a common thread through people who want to start a side hustle and aspiring entrepreneurs in general, that they, it's not that the corporate environment's bad. That's not the case at all. It's just that it feels a little too confining for creative entrepreneurs, so to speak. So they, the desire is there to do something creative outside of that and see where you can take it. And it's really not much more than that, at least at the start. And then once you get momentum, it can turn into something more than maybe you could have ever imagined, in a way that allows us to serve people and really make a difference. That's one of the most exciting things for me anyways.
Definitely.
How about giving the listeners and viewers some examples of successful side hustles? You've given one about your idea, your initial idea that you started with shoes, and even the affiliate idea. Give us maybe a few more successful side hustle ideas that you've experienced or that you've heard of or that you've helped clients with maybe.
Sure. I mean, there's 45 of them or something live on the Side Hustle Show podcast,
Okay.
and you see it in every, like, I think one of the quickest ways to get started is with freelancing. It's like, what do you know, what are you an expert in, what can you help other people with? And just, even if you start locally and put it up on Craigslist, like my wife and her friend they bought fancy cameras and they're playing around and they're like, I think, we're pretty good, patting themselves on the back and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, one night, I don't know if they have been drinking or she doesn't really drink, but it was like, they got up the guts to put an ad on Craigslist and say, we will shoot your wedding for you. And like going straight to the top of the market. Now they priced, they say, hey, we have no portfolio, so if you take a risk on us, we're going to do your wedding super cheap. I think they started at $200, and then after getting flooded with inquiries, they raised it to $500. They said, we still have no portfolio, but we're going to make this at least worth our while a little bit.
Yeah.
And so something like that, where this hobby kind of transitions into a business, like you're taking pictures for your friends or you're helping your friends out. Yeah. And that's kind of a pattern that we've seen over and over again on the show. It's like, I had built up this, quasi expertise or hobby business or whatever. And then, I started helping my friends for free, and then they're like, you're really good, you should charge money. They refer you to other people, and it kind of grows from there.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Putting an ad on Craigslist, going from
who's looking for wedding photographers on Craigslist? But apparently a ton of people. And, it was a very different clientele than like your, thousands of dollars weddings. But they built up their portfolio, and so that was last year. Now this year, the price has gone up 10x. So it's really, really cool.
And to think of I'll link up the ideas that you have on Side Hustle Nation so that people can just reference that in the show notes here on this episode. But you just think about it, expanding that idea out. Craigslist, obviously people are there looking for whatever, and wedding photography is just one thing, something that your wife enjoyed, thought she was pretty good at, and then launched it just like that and had paying customers. And then where you can scale it from there is really, that's up to you. But that can be done with anything. It can be done with, any number of services, whether it's, editing photos or dog walking or, any just unlimited amount of freelancing ideas out there. It's incredible.
Yeah. Their Craigslist hack, and I'll share this because I like to do like the tactical stuff, was to post in the generic like for sale section rather than like the services section, because that's like the default search or something. Just like the default search is just for sale. So that's their that was their tip for getting more eyeballs.
That's a great tip. Fantastic. I love that. All right. So many ideas. Let me shift gears a little bit here. I talk to a lot of people that I guess they feel trapped in their day jobs, or they're just not satisfied. Maybe they don't hate them, but maybe they just don't feel like it's giving them everything that they want in their life from a business perspective. So they want to branch out and start something creative. And I think that's where the side hustle idea really starts to kick in and take hold. What are the top things, maybe the top 3 things that you would advise people to do as they consider starting something on the side, starting a side hustle?
Well, you're already doing one of the things that I never did, was listening to these podcasts and hearing from other entrepreneurs who've done it before. Yeah. I used to drive 700 miles a week, for work, just spend hours and hours of, this brainless windshield time. And I had no idea that podcasts were a thing, that they even existed. Like it was just so many wasted hours. So you're already doing one thing right. Next thing, I would probably, that's a good question. What would I do first? Um, one thing that helped me, I think, was, I started a WordPress blog, 4 years before starting Side Hustle Nation. And for me, that was like that daily practice of writing, of creating content online. And nobody ever read it. I mean, not very many people ever read it because it was incoherent. It was, there was no common theme. It wasn't like centered around part-time entrepreneurship. It was, there was some marketing stuff, some entrepreneurship stuff, because that was what was going on in my life, but it was also like vacation pictures or some rant about current events and like, oh, here's our dog. And so there was no like reason for people, unless they like cared about me personally, to like really like, follow this blog and read it.
Yeah.
But the advantage of doing that was learning WordPress, learning how to, tweak with the, site design, learning how to, do all that other, just getting comfortable with the practice of writing, I think, was a big help.
Okay.
So that's two. What do we need? We need a third one.
Oh, we don't have to have a third one, but if you've got one. I'll comment while you're thinking. I'll comment on the blog. That's how I started out too. I just wanted to express myself creatively, and the same thing you said. I was putting stuff up there. I was really, I think, in hindsight, like finding my voice, finding that area that I really cared about, and I was putting the same thing: vacation, adventure pictures, and writing about whatever was interesting to me at that time during that week. And I started to notice patterns on what I really enjoyed writing about. And that actually led to some initial part-time coaching clients. I mean, I was like shocked when a couple people reached out and said, hey, you know what? This thing that you're doing on the side in your corporate job, I want to do that. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I'm happy to help you.
I like it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents on that one idea alone, starting a blog and kind of using that as a format to find your voice and really start to find out what you're interested in and what resonates with you.
Yeah, I like that. We'll leave it at those instead of trying to come up with a third one.
All right, cool. One thing so this was a challenge for me, and I kind of had to figure it out for myself, and I think it's also a challenge for other people, is that time and scheduling seem to be big issues. When you're working full-time and you're wanting to break into doing something creative and start a side hustle, what are your top suggestions for making space for starting the side hustle and staying committed to it?
Well, the time management is a huge challenge, because it's like, if you're commuting and working, you've got family obligations, you've got other stuff going on during the week, it can be really tough to carve out some time. So that's one thing I've started asking people, like, if you only had an hour a day, to spend on your business, what would you do? Because that seems like to be okay, I can carve out an hour or whatever. And so a couple of things that I've heard, or like from the productivity experts, one is, you might not like this, is just to get up an hour earlier, just straight up, like, I'm gonna set the alarm for 5. That's gonna be my quiet time to, buckle down, do my research, do my writing, do my, whatever, get things set up for the day.
Yeah.
The other thing that has really resonated to me, and I'm like a to-do list junkie, I'm like, you could see, like, it's just like out of control right here, is to get clear, like, if you're going to have 15-minute windows or half-hour windows or something, to not waste the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes of that time like trying to figure out what to do. And so that's kind of where I put the list down, and like try and be good about estimating how much time that's going to take so I like, hey, I've got a 15-minute chunk. Okay, great. I've got a 15-minute project. I can plug it in and get that done. Like knowing what you want to do before that time, because like you can't afford to waste any of that free time that does come up.
Okay. All right.
And we could talk about, leveraging your time and buying time with outsourcing and all that stuff if you want to get into it, but that might be a topic for another episode.
Yeah. I was more thinking, just, starting out. I think people often, like, it doesn't really hit them until they all of a sudden have this other thing on their plate, right? Like this side hustle, and people are already busy. So making that a priority and finding that time and making that time, I think, is, no matter who you are, is always an issue for people, just making that a priority. And I love what you said about, just that little nugget about, being realistic about your time and knowing that when you sit down to start something, maybe there's 5 or 10 minutes on the front side of that where you're just planning and trying to figure it out, and accounting for those things, because you can get a lot done in 10 minutes if you're focused and you know what you're going to be doing. So
Definitely.
it's good. It's just great things to be aware of, even little things, because all your time adds up, and people are always amazed. There's a quote out there. I don't recall who said it, but people often underestimate or overestimate what they can get done in a day and underestimate what they can get done in a year. And I think that's so true. Often we look back on a year and we're like, oh my gosh, we get a lot done.
Okay.
Yet the to-do list for today, maybe it's so full that I only get half of them done.
Yeah, no, that's a good quote. And our friend, John Dumas has the saying of whatever I don't know, somebody's law, Parkinson's law, or is that a disease? Like somebody's law, the work expands to fill the time that you give it. And so if you only have an hour a day to get things done, then that's all you got. You got to make it happen.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, that is so true, right? I mean, when you run under the gun, it's true. If you've got a week to get something done, you'll take that full week. If you've got 24 hours, you'll take the 24 hours. You'll still get it done. That's so true. I love it. All right.
What's my favorite? Like, if it wasn't for the last minute, a lot of stuff would never get done.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And also, I mean, there's something about, going back to what you said about jumping to the previous question about starting a blog. There's something about, even if you've got just 1 or 2 people that read that blog, and it can be, your sister, your mom, whatever. It's like all of a sudden there's an expectation. If you decide to blog every week, like create a new blog every week or twice a week, there becomes this expectation. And that accountability can really drive, I think, the what's it called? Just the discipline around doing something on the side. At least that's the way it was for me. Discipline
is like the key word, I think, for this conversation, for side hustlers in general. Having the discipline, it's the easy thing is to come home from work, plop down on the couch, and turn on the TV. And the discipline thing is, I need to set aside this time to work on my business, to build something meaningful.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, going back to your earlier example, whether you're running marathons or triathlons or whatever, or starting a side hustle, putting that time in first, either before you turn on the TV or just maybe not even turning on the TV is so key. And what I found too is once you get into a rhythm of doing something that you really are enjoying, like you're enjoying the process of it, you're looking forward to the results, and you're enjoying that creative process. That is so far and away more interesting than any TV show that you could watch, because it's about it's about you and me and what we're doing to affect our small something out into the world. And
I'm making my tiny dent in the universe.
Exactly.
This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Did you ever listen to the Seth Godin's Startup School series of podcasts he put out? I think it was last year or the year before.
No, I haven't. I'd be curious to hear your comments.
It's really good stuff. I was on had 4 hours of driving one weekend and was just on double speed, and was like, oh, this is so good. So definitely recommend that stuff.
Okay, I'll check that out. You're the 4th person who's told me about that. So
okay.
Apparently it's something that I really do need to look into.
It's just it's just good, business nerdy marketing stuff. I don't know. I ate it up.
Pretty much anything Seth Godin puts out is got some good value to it. So I would encourage listeners to go. I'll put that in the show notes as well, but I'm going to check it out for myself too. Thanks for mentioning that. All right. So here's something that I really want you to share. We talked about this before the show, and you had written, I think it was somewhat recently, about the top 3 mistakes that you made starting out with your business. And I'd love for you to share that with the listeners and viewers, because these are the things that can, really shorten the learning curve for people, especially if they're just starting out in a side hustle idea. So talk to us about those 3 mistakes.
Sure. So I think I had some beginner's luck when I hired my first web development team, in that it took them a little bit longer than they said they were going to deliver the product, but they eventually did.
Yeah.
And I had heard, hey, whatever the any software project is going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. And thankfully they stuck to their guns on the fixed price bid, so it only took twice as long and they didn't charge me double. So that was good.
Good.
But a few years later, I was kind of upset with them for poor communication, and just I didn't think that their technical chops were on par with where the business needed to go in terms of growth. And the platform that they built had been, it wasn't scaling up very well, or it was stressing under the weight of more traffic and more products and stuff.
Yeah.
So I went out and was like, hey, I did this once, I can do it again. So I went out and put the job up for bid, complete redesign from scratch. And I was really excited because I found this company out of Minneapolis. Hey, his bid is on par with these guys in India. That's great. I can, hire somebody locally. There's going to be no language barrier, no lost in translation, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out the guy, he was just, bit off way more than he could chew, and didn't deliver anything. Just would not respond to calls, emails. It was just a terrible experience. It cost several thousand, maybe even more than $10,000, all said and done, because I had to go back eventually to the original company, kind of with my tail between my legs.
Yeah.
And to go back. So if I had to do it differently, I think I would start off with a smaller project.
Yeah.
I guess 2 things. Start off with a smaller project concept to you just kind of test the waters and validate this stuff before you just say, hey, this is a 5-figure project. That's what it was last time, so that seems reasonable. Let's get this done.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an unproven quantity, and there's so much grade inflation on Elance and these other platforms. It's hard to know who's legit. And this guy, this was mistake number 2. Convinced me to do business with him offsite, out of the platform, off of Elance. He's like, hey, I can save you some money if we go, if you just do me. And we talked several times. I was wooed by this guy. I bought into his sales pitch. He seemed to have a good understanding.
Yeah.
But then I had no recourse when he eventually flaked out and couldn't deliver the project. Even though I found him on Elance, there was no there was no dispute resolution, no feedback mechanism, no nothing.
Okay.
So,
okay. Got it.
Ugly stuff there.
Ouch.
So I run a site to help people with their outsourcing stuff, and I've written a book to try and help people avoid these same painful mistakes. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, those are painful.
Mistake number 2. I think when things were going good, I had a fear in Chris Ducker calls this the superhero syndrome. I'm afraid to delegate to anybody else because they're not going to do as good a job as me. They're going to steal my ideas. They're all this stuff. So that I think held me back when things were really booming, because I was limited by the number of hours in a day. Whereas if I had taken some of those hours to train somebody else to do, because the stuff I was working on wasn't really rocket science. But if I had gotten over my trust issues, I think I could have scaled up faster and kind of duplicated my efforts with the help of some team members.
Okay. All right. Good.
So that was mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 was just pursuing projects I didn't really care about. So I've got a whole trail of side hustle failures behind me, of kind of half-baked side ideas and stuff. So the shoe site, as an example, everyone was like, oh, a natural extension would be to go into handbags and luggage and stuff. And so I was like, sure, that makes sense. Lightning could strike twice. Make this happen. So we built this out. It cost $5,000 to get it done. And had I done some market research beforehand, I would have learned that the the breadth of sellers in that marketplace is 10 times wider, and so you're going to churn through 10 times more data, and the product depth is only this deep, and so it's just like a huge burden on processing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the commissions were lower, and so it's like it didn't make sense. So I drank my own Kool-Aid too much and didn't really care about this business, and didn't do the research to back it up. So
okay,
plenty of mistakes along the way.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately that's the way we learn. Sometimes it's the hard way, but it's also the way other people can basically learn from us. So I love it. Start with smaller projects. Be careful with, especially that whole area of web design and development. It's especially if you don't know a lot about it, it's an easy and slippery slope to get probably pulled in a direction that you don't even know that you're going down. Number 2, delegation. I'm in that phase right now where I'm looking to delegate, and it feels, I don't know why there's a resistance to it, but for me there just is. Similar to what you described, letting go of things that I think I can do better than someone else. It's ridiculous, but I deal with that, and I'm working through that right now. And then doing projects that you don't necessarily care about.
Right.
Great. Okay, cool. Those are really good points, Nick. Thank you. One of the things you kind of started to talk about a little bit and alluded to was this whole idea of validating a project or an idea. And I think that's really important for side hustlers, people that want to do something on the side. Like, I always encourage people to be really creative and, kind of get in that exploration mode about what you want to do. But then at some point, you've got to choose an idea and ideally validate it. So I'm curious to know from you, like, what would you suggest, and what are some ways that you've used to validate your idea before spending a bunch of time and money on it to make sure that people actually want it?
So I'll give the example of the podcast. Like,
Okay.
I didn't want to miss the boat on the podcasting train, but at the same time, was not super comfortable with the sound of my recorded voice, or I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't want to spend a ton of money on equipment and all that stuff. I see you've got a very fancy looking mic over there. So what I did instead was like, okay, I'm going to buy kind of the 80-20. Like, if this mic is going to sound 80% as good as the super high-end one for 20% of the cost, let me do that. Let me find the free recording software, and let me just put a few episodes out there to see what the reaction is, see what happens, and then started getting people, I found you through iTunes, I love what you're doing, and so it was a way to start on the cheap. Now, it was cheap in terms of monetary cost, and expensive in terms of time, because it still took a lot of time to edit, to learn how to record the thing and mash it up into iTunes and all that stuff. But it was low cost. And with the shoe site, the validation was kind of at this direct pay-per-click advertising beforehand, before investing in the site.
Okay, got it. All right, good. So many ways to validate, but
yeah, so like you said, we talked about Craigslist validation. I mean, you could even do AdWords. Get a free Facebook ads credit or whatever. There's always promos for that stuff.
Got it. Yeah, I love that, and it's a big thing, and I suppose, and I've heard about this concept before too, and I think it feels a little bit like intimidating, but to test the waters, like, you could literally, like, before you even had a product or a service, you could literally just place an ad. You could create a landing page, you could put an ad on Craigslist, whatever, just to gauge the interest, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. All right, good. So validation. That's something that I preach to my coaching clients all the time, so I'm a big proponent of it now. All right, let's step a little bit out of the business mode, and just, I want to give people a sense for what it really feels like. Now that you used to work for a big corporation, now you're a full-time entrepreneur, you're pursuing your creative ambitions. What's that feel like, and is there a typical day in the life of Nick Loper now? I want to give people a sense for that.
Yeah, it's the most crazy, stressful, and exciting and rewarding journey that you'll ever go on. So, I used to have hair. Um, it's you could go crazy and but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
So it's a typical day in the life. Um, take the dog out in the morning and then jump to where I usually start off work on my treadmill desk
Okay.
upstairs in the morning,
Yeah.
which it finally died after 2 years. I think the motor finally died last week, so I need to jump back on Craigslist and find a new treadmill base. But that's something that's been helpful for me because it's like I'm working online, working from the computer, but being able to at least move, and so this week has been a stand-up desk, which is a million times more awkward than walking. You wouldn't think it, but it's weird. A day in life, it just the challenge for me, and for a lot of years, even up until very recently, was trying to figure out what to work on, what to prioritize, because there's no boss telling you what's next, what
Yeah.
should you do now,
Yep.
and it's something. So that's been just in the past year or so, really started to reach out and build a community, build a network of other entrepreneurs who are also working from home, who are also working on their other projects to kind of pull together to support each other. Even if it's not in like a formal mastermind type setup, there's just some value in, hey, do you mind if we jump on Skype real quick? I just wanted to run something past you, and
Yeah.
stuff like that, because it's pretty lonely. Like working, just hanging out, working from home is you can be pretty lonely. So I like having those other people to connect with.
Got it. Okay, great. Yeah, I was just recently looking at, not looking at, but networking with some some people who've started startup incubators, co-working spaces here in Portland. There's a lot of them now. It's really kind of
Hmm.
this whole thing that's exploding. It appears, and it's an interesting concept because as kind of bootstrap entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time by ourselves, and it's good to share ideas with people and not try to remain so insulated. It's pretty easy for me to do that, like just get in my groove and not reach out to people. So there's a lot of ways to do that, and I think it's important as you go along and share ideas and um, expand your business. All right. So one thing that I'm adding this week, and if you'll go along with me on this, it's kind of like I've got it's kind of rapid fire questions on some of the
All right,
some
lightning
things.
round. Let's do it.
Lightning round, lightning round. All right, lightning round. Here we go. What's the most influential book that's guided you on your entrepreneurial journey?
Lately is The Go Giver.
The Go Giver. Okay. All right. Great. What's the best conference or industry event that you've attended and why?
Yeah, so too, like World Domination Summit was just awesome from the standpoint of like, hey, these are my people. Like,
Yeah.
there's this whole, what the website says, a remarkable army of individuals all working to change the world in their own way or something. And it's somebody described it as almost spiritual, and it's weird
Yeah.
to think about that, but it totally
Yeah.
was like it's just everybody coming together and stuff like that. So that was really good. Not so much from a practical standpoint. So the practical one I would attend if you're doing blog or online business or podcasting stuff would have to be New Media Expo. So that's
Okay.
in January in Vegas, and that one was really really cool.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Next question. What is the single most effective tool, concept, or strategy that you've used to grow your business?
Outside of the podcast, which has been just a huge, opened the doors to a huge new audience that wouldn't otherwise have. Um, I'll stick with the podcast. I like that one. If you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence about it, just get started. It's
Yeah.
just a whole world of earbuds waiting to hear from what you have to say.
Very cool. All right. Thank you, Nick. And then one last thing. I love to give my listeners and viewers a chance to get to know something a little bit unique about my guests. So, what is your current favorite hobby outside of developing your business? Or what's the most adventurous thing you've done in the last 6 months?
I like the most adventurous thing. So this,
Okay.
this ties into the freedom aspect of building your business on the side. So my wife was able to get over a month off from work. She had saved up a ton of vacation. So in October, we took off for Japan and Southeast Asia. We spent 5.5 weeks over there, kind of a belated honeymoon / just playing tourist, and for me playing digital nomad, and trying to work from the road and do this stuff. It was a ton of fun. Like I'm already trying to think of like where can we go? How much do we need to save up to get to do it again, to do something else like that? It was really cool.
Nice, love it. That is adventurous, by the way, taking your business on the road for 5 weeks and exploring Southeast Asia. It sounds like a blast.
Definitely.
Great. Well, Nick, what's up next for you and your business? Tell us what's new and exciting for you, either now or in the upcoming months or both.
Sure. So my, I guess, goals for the year I put out in January to continue writing. I wanted to do 500 words a day, 5 days a week. Okay. Which would fuel, I think, 125,000 words over the course of the year. So that's like, a year's worth of blog posts, guest posts, different book projects, and sort of that. It's like the writing is really what fuels a lot of the business in terms of getting new eyeballs to you and making book sales and stuff like that. Yeah. And then the second thing was to turn the side hustle site into a viable business on its own. And so that's kind of where we started with kind of this private mastermind sessions, some private business coaching, and it's been exciting so far to see how that takes off. So those are the two things I'm working on for the year, and just a dozen other side hustle experiments going on as well. There's always something cooking.
Love it. All right. And then the best way for people to get in touch with you is to go to
just stop on by sidehustlenation.com.
Okay, fantastic. Great. I'll link that up. I'll link up all these resources you've mentioned in the show notes. Nick, it's been great having you on the Startup Sessions. Thanks so much for joining me and providing all this insight and knowledge for the guests here in April, Side Hustle Month. You're the man. You're the side hustle guy. So I really do appreciate your time. It's been wonderful, and I'm sure that we'll speak again sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon. We'll see everybody on next week's episode of the Startup Sessions. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this interview, be sure to go to thestartupsessions.com and sign up to have the latest interviews delivered to your inbox weekly. All of these interviews are also offered on video at thestartupsessions.com, or get the audio version via the Startup Sessions podcast. Just hop on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast there. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I know that your time is valuable, so I do my very best to provide the most inspirational and actionable content for creating a meaningful business. I'll see you on the next episode of the Startup Sessions.